Today, we're talking about something we all experience at one time or another. Whether it's going from college life to a full-time career, moving to a new home and leaving everything familiar behind, or even just moving out of one position into a new one at work. Eventually, we all have to navigate through life's transitions. So stay tuned for an easy-to-digest roadmap to navigate this journey. Plus, I'm going to give you 3 proven strategies to help even the most challenging life transition feel a little smoother. Whether you want to face it or not, life transitions, big or small, chosen or unexpected, happen to all of us. And they're simply part of this great adventure of being alive. So maybe you're graduating into your first real job. Or maybe you're watching your child leave for college. Or you're stepping into a brand new role at work. Or even caring for aging parents. No matter what the circumstance, every transition carries these 2 truths. First of all, it comes with emotional turbulence, like uncertainty, self-doubt, as well as grief for what's ending. Whether you're experiencing the end of a relationship, maybe even the death of a loved one, or even moving out of your childhood home, your emotions are valid. So don't feel like you have to push them down. And we're going to discuss some ways to identify them and give them a voice a little later on. Secondly, it offers a fresh doorway for you to walk through and to experience personal growth, reinvention, and rediscovering what matters most to you. You know, when I first became a life coach, the ability to help others find their true purpose and destiny for their lives was so exciting, and I often refer to it as a cure for midlife crisis. Now, my reasoning behind this is that so often someone reaches midlife and they haven't achieved the things that they felt they should have by this point in their life. Then their response is that they begin to feel desperate and they start grasping at the craziest things to combat that realization. In fact, some women decide to make a drastic career change. Some will make unrealistic or even compulsive purchases. Others make even unhealthier decisions, reacting in the moment to feelings that could have been avoided with some intentional planning earlier in their life. But the most important thing to realize is that it's never too late. You can begin intentionally setting goals now to move you into the direction of your dreams. And this is what a healthy transition that you choose could look like. Which brings me to our timeless truth for today. Transitions aren't endings. They're invitations to rediscover who you are and who you're becoming. So now let's talk about why life transitions feel so tough. First of all, they're often accompanied by an inner tug of war, which shows up in various ways, such as uncertainty and identity shifts. One of the most common emotional challenges that women face during life transitions is the feeling of uncertainty and instability. Because life's transitions often involve stepping into the unknown. Let's face it, we are all drawn to what feels comfortable. And this looks like leaving behind familiar routines or identities and embarking on new paths, which can trigger feelings of anxiety, fear, and self-doubt as we begin to grapple with questions about our future, as well as our sense of identity. You know, we never realize how much our family and work roles define who we think we are until we come face to face with a shift in one of them. Some questions that might consume our thoughts may include, who am I now that the kids are gone? Am I still a mom? Or, can I really succeed in this new position? And if I'm no longer the sales manager or the team leader, or you choose your title, do I still have value? Another significant challenge is the pressure to balance multiple roles and responsibilities. Because women, we're often expected to juggle family life, career goals, our social obligations, as well as our own personal aspirations, which seems much more challenging during times of transition. And this can lead us to feelings of overwhelm, guilt, and inadequacy as we struggle to meet the expectations placed on us by others. And then there's grief and nostalgia, which could look like mourning a familiar routine, a long-held job, or the season of life that's ending. In fact, I remember the year my son went off to college. Although I was excited for him, I was mourning the loss of an empty house. There were no more movie nights or game days, and the emptiness was taking a toll on me. I was leading a small group of teenagers at the time every week in my house, and when December came, they were shocked that I didn't have any decorations or even a tree up in my house. And personally, I hadn't realized how far the emptiness had pulled me down until they pointed it out. Of course, my reasoning was, what's the point? My son wasn't here to share it with me. But these teenagers helped me realize that the holidays were not just about what was missing, but also about how I wanted to intentionally live and celebrate with everyone who walked into my home. Beautiful dreamer, understanding why you feel sad or disoriented is half the battle. It reassures you that nothing is wrong with you. You're simply human. During so many of my experiences with life transitions, this powerful scripture has inspired me and carried me through. It's Ecclesiastes 3. In fact, the first 8 verses can all bring a little clarity to this life. But verses 1 and 2 say, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven." This verse reminds us that change is a natural part of life, and that each season has its very own purpose. Now let's talk about 3 strategies for smoother transitions. First of all, communicate clearly with yourself and with others. This means be very clear in sharing your expectations, because vague hopes breed stress, while specific goals invite support. Share your expectations early and share them often. Let your family, friends, or coworkers know what you'll need as you shift from one life situation to the next. And don't forget to set gentle boundaries with those expectations. For example, you might say, "I'll need to have Tuesday evenings available for a job search class." This will prevent resentment from building up later on. Secondly, lean on and build your support squad. As difficult as it may seem at times, it's so critical to be proactive in surrounding yourself with people who have your back, who understand your situation, and who are going to speak life into you. Or maybe at times, not even speak at all, but just be there, depending on what you need at the moment. So a couple of healthy practices you can implement right away are phone a friend or a mentor. Have honest and open conversations. When you do this, it normalizes the swirl of emotions that you may be experiencing. And you could also consider engaging the help of a pro. Depending on the type of transition you're going through, a life coach or a counselor can offer you structured, judgment-free space to unpack your fears and your concerns, and to guide you forward in planning your next steps. And finally, when the time comes, reciprocate. Be there for someone else who's going through a similar situation or a life change, because supporting others in their life transitions reinforces your own resilience. And don't forget to practice mindfulness and self-compassion. You can do this by learning to stay present, even in the midst of the turmoil. Intentionally live in the now. Believe it or not, a 5-minute breathing exercise or even a short walk around the block can pull your focus away from all the what ifs back to what's true in my life right now. Now, something that I often get off track on and my friends have to pull me back is practicing talking to yourself kindly. Swap those inner thoughts like, I should be handling this so much better, with, I'm doing the best I can in this unfamiliar season. And finally, beautiful dreamer, I would just like to remind you that you're killing it in this season of your life. So whatever life transition you're going through at the moment, remember, just the fact that you're listening to this podcast, trying to take intentional action to show up as your best self, says volumes. So celebrate those small wins, like each resume that you send out, each peaceful night after the kids are gone, and make a note of it and savor that moment. And just like I promised, let's discuss processing that emotional side. First of all, I want to encourage you, allow yourself to grieve, whether it's a child's empty bedroom, losing a loved one, or a downsized job. Honoring the loss keeps pain from turning into bitterness. And take time to stop and listen to what your mind, will, and emotions are telling you. You can journal or talk it out. Remember how I mentioned earlier that it's important to validate your feelings and give them a voice? Well, some women need to process it with words on paper, while others need to verbally process with a walking buddy or just a compassionate friend who will listen. Both forms of expression are valid, so choose one to practice. Personally, I prefer journaling, but then I often go to that friend to process verbally as well. So our challenge for this week is to pick one strategy to start, and then think about adding one or two more, because layering them over time will work wonders in your life. Now, here's something you may not have thought about. Even pivotal birthdays can become a life transition. So what would it look like to start turning these milestones into fresh starts or new beginnings? So just reimagine the possibilities. This can be a launching pad for a season of purpose-driven work, for exploring meaningful volunteering, or for simply adding new hobbies that light you up. And it's also the perfect time to update your values and priorities. For example, what mattered to you at 25 may look differently at 35, 45, or even 65. So let your current season guide your next set of goals, because skills, wisdom, and creativity don't have expiration dates. So don't let other people's age stereotypes define what you can and can't do in your future. And during this season, I want you to watch for hidden gifts to emerge, because these life transitions, they often uncover your strengths like patience, adaptability, courage, things that you didn't even realize that you had. Now remember, our timeless truth for today is transitions aren't endings. They're invitations to rediscover who you are and who you're becoming. So as you move through your own season of change, remember, this isn't the end of your story. In fact, it's the beginning of a chapter written with deeper wisdom, clarity, and courage. So take a breath and give yourself some grace. Get curious about the woman that you're becoming and dare to dream boldly for what's next. And don't forget to implement one of the strategies that we talked about, because we don't want to forget our challenge. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to show up, to grow, and to trust the process. With clear communication, your healthy support system, and a little dose of self-compassion, you can step through each new doorway with well-earned confidence and curiosity, being ready to write the next, even more vibrant chapter of your story. So if this episode inspired you, please subscribe and share it with a friend, because you never know when somebody else might be going through a challenging life transition as well. Beautiful dreamer, you truly do have a wondrous future ahead of you, and I'm so excited to see what unfolds in this next chapter of your life. There absolutely is a time and a season for everything, so just have faith that you're growing through a new one, and trust that your happily ever after isn't a lie.